Welcome to our fifth session of day 2 and our final session of the Healthcare in the Age of Personalization Summit, Advancing Personalized Patient Care Experiences Through Technology. Now, this session will be moderated by Sunny Southern, Healthcare Insights Portfolio Outbound Product Management Lead at Google. Thank you, Sunny.
Hello and welcome, everybody. The world is changing faster than ever before, and it's more important than ever that we empower people to engage with information and each other in ways that meet their unique needs. The only way for healthcare and life sciences organizations to provide the type of experience and the level of engagement that individuals expect is through the thoughtful and effective use of technology. Our goal for today is that you walk away with an understanding of the role that technology plays in personalization, and you have some ideas of how to get started. Brent, why is personalization in healthcare so important for both patients and providers of care?
Thanks, Sunny. Recognizing this is actually a global question that's guiding this entire conference, I kind of want to underscore that what's good for the patient here is good for providers and actually their business. We did a study recently and found that 41% of people in America under the age of 45 believes Amazon knows me better than the doctor knows me. So you start thinking about things like Amazon and other non-traditional players that are moving into healthcare, like Google, CVS with their connection with Aetna and Oak Street. They're moving into this market. And the reality is these companies excel at consumerism and personalization. So if you're not prepared to counter this or play in the same ballpark, it could get very challenging to attract and retain patients.
Brent, thank you so much. I'm not surprised that you threw out so many stats given your expertise and your background. And so next, speaking of data experts, Carrie Weinberg. We'd love to hear from you how League balances the need of standards with being able to personalize on an individual level to your patients and your users.
Yeah, so as League, we're a digital health software platform. We help payers, providers, and retail pharmacies deliver direct-to-patient mobile and web experiences. And our perspective at League is really that standardization using FHIR really unlocks a lot of potential for personalization. From a data standpoint, if I know that something coming from electronic health record, if that's a piece of information, perhaps a patient-reported assessment, and that can be linked with patients reporting those questionnaires through our application, we can use the information from both of those systems, and depending on where their source is, we can actually use that in a way that drives personalization to those end users. And so that sort of is like the foundational perspective on how we build these capabilities for our partners and ultimately to drive personalization for patients.
Thanks, Carrie. That's really informative. We're going to switch gears to the other side. So Carrie is talking about the back end of making the data all work together. And Tom is going to talk to us a little bit about how high value content can help improve the trust that has been slightly and sometimes more than slightly eroded within healthcare these days. So Tom, can you tell us a little bit about how personalized healthcare experiences can show people that they are understood as individuals?
Absolutely. So thank you for the question. When I talk about content, incidentally, I'm referring to things like blog posts or articles, informative videos, research publications that could be shared with patients, not necessarily when they need care, but also in advance of that, before they even walk in the door. So when somebody's looking for care, they keep that organization in mind and would be one of the first places that they would go.
So Brent, I'm going to come back to you before we switch topics. And that is, can you provide some real examples of how healthcare providers are shifting?
TriHealth in Cincinnati actually is a great example of this with its health coaches program. Their health coaches were trained in a way that basically had the patients defining their own goals and the choices for achieving these goals. Is kind of a very open-ended approach. And you think that would make a lot of sense. Now, on the surface, one would think that they were following a very highly personalized approach. And they were successful. They're a very successful organization, but they knew they were missing out on some patients and could have a stronger impact on more patients overall. And they looked into deeply understanding their needs, attitudes, and motivations of patients. And they found that there are certain patient types out there. So there's some structure and some standardization for some of the patients that are out there. So by using these consumer industry methods for identifying these different patient types according to their learning and engagement preferences, TriHealth health coaches were able to adjust their approaches for each of the patients. And the results were remarkable. They were reducing health risks a lot more, reducing costs for each TriHealth client. It was kind of like a win-win-win. I will take a page from Glenn Llopis's teachings. Glenn, I watched your videos and refer to his framework for change. It's basically assess, interrupt, and pivot. And if you look at what TriHealth did, they assessed their approach to patient engagement, and the intention was there for personalization, but it really didn't hit the mark for absolutely everybody. They interrupted that approach by adopting consumer industry methods for understanding healthcare consumer motivations. And they pivoted or adjusted their approach to leverage each patient's individuality.
Thank you, Brent. Carrie, we'd love to hear from you about how you're using segmentation and rethinking segmentation and personalization at League.
Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity to leverage what many organizations do in terms of risk stratification and actually use those risk cohorts to drive personalization, drive impact. And the approach that we take with our partners, we have a foundational capability. We call it the League Personalization Foundry. And essentially, you can think of it as similar to a customer data platform, but the idea being like, what is those key pieces of segmentation criteria that you want to use to drive a next communication, to drive a tile within the home screen, to drive a next activity for the member or the patient to do. And we're using information both that we glean on our patients and members to better understand them. Traditional methods would typically use, okay, we'll have a nurse call them, or we'll have someone support contact them. Those are obviously high touch ways to engage with people, but there's also opportunities for organizations to drive more at scale mechanisms of personalizing the experience for their patient population using a mix of techniques, both historical ones that I mentioned, as well as newer approaches that Brent was sharing.
It's very helpful. And I really love the fact that you brought up scale, because at the end of the day, we really all recognize that we're being asked to do more and more, and we seem to have less and less resources. And Tom's going to tell us a bit about his approach from a Concurred perspective about how they're helping patients come to their office visits with relevant information that's accurate and well-informed. Tom.
Thank you, Sunny. By looking at the content that people consume in terms of whether it's blog posts, articles, newsletters, etc., by knowing what those have been, what topics those have been written about, and how people are engaging with that content, such as how long they spend reading it, how many articles they read on the same topic, how many they read within the same week, how long a session is, for example, all of that kind of more traditionally marketing world type of data, we can actually infer what a patient is interested in, what research they've already done before they even walk in the door.
It's great. Anything that we can do to reduce the amount of additional out of regular office hours work for our staff, especially nurses, is so helpful. And obviously you've shown that you can do that. So Carrie, I think this would be a good one for you. We're going to answer one of the questions that Jeff has posted. Jeff, thanks for posting really thoughtful questions. So how are you seeing clinicians and physicians adopt technology in a way that's positive and they're excited about and is making a positive impact on their lives and not just one more thing that they have to do?
As a healthcare information technology industry, we have failed clinicians to date. I will say that point blank. And the current systems that are in place make it extremely difficult. And there's numerous studies that have shown it takes physician attention away from patients, because fundamentally we've shifted physicians from more of a data entry requirement. Obviously we need this information, not just for billing purposes, but also to better understand the kinds of outcomes we're seeing. And there's a couple of different ways to address this. One is better user experience design in these health technology systems that we're putting in front of clinicians. So that's one component, just fundamentally better user experience. Doesn't take fancy AI, it just design it with your end user in mind. The second piece is, I do think there is an opportunity for more technology that is using natural language, making it easier for clinicians to verbally record their information, be able to glean what's going on, whether through the different devices in the hospital, to be able to then grab that information versus needing to re-record vital signs, for example. So there's a lot of opportunity for technology, like more novel technology, to make that experience better for clinicians. Also, just good old-fashioned, better user experience, better product development.